Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and Ting and Ting and Ting. Back with some more vibes for the yes I and somebody suggested I watch this and I've been wanting to watch more on Russia. I started off doing a lot of watching at Russian stuff. By the way, I'm Mr. Giant. I am Mr. Giant. But and I've been looking for stuff to watch about Russia some more. And somebody suggested that I watch this series here. It's called The History of Russia, and this is part one of it. So I ain't gonna talk too long. We're gonna get right on into this here. Let's YouTube and simmer. Yeah.
For thousands of years, the lands known today as Russia and Ukraine were inhabited by nomadic tribes and mysterious Bronze Age cultures. The only record they left were their graves. In the great open grasslands of the south, the steppe, they buried their chieftains beneath huge mounds called kurgans. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus called these people Scythians.
Scythians.
Their lands were overrun by the same nomadic warriors who brought down the Roman Empire. The land was then settled by Slavs. They shared some language and culture, but were divided into many different tribes. Vikings from Scandinavia.
See, even though the ethnicity might be the same, they still have different tribes. And it's crazy because, I mean, same thing here with the Native Americans. They were Native Americans, according to them. They were all under one umbrella. They were called the Indians, but they have different tribes. And same thing with the Africans, they have different tribes. You know what I mean? And those tribes fought against each other, and those tribes enslaved each other, and those tribes oppressed each other. You know what I mean? So, and even when they expanded outward from their own land itself, they sort of brought that culture with them that they had, not just the culture itself, but the culture of economics and stuff, the way they were doing it. So they brought it with them. But that's interesting because, when you hear about countries and things like that, you just think it's one big country. Well, when I was a kid, I did. I mean, the older I got, the better I understood. But you know what I mean? When you're in school and they're teaching you it, and you hear Russia, you just think everybody's the same there. You don't really think that there's different tribes and stuff like that. But you catch my drift.
Yeah, known in the east as Varangians, rode up Russia's long rivers on daring raids and trading expeditions. According to legend, the East Slavs asked a Varangian chief named Rurik to be their prince and unite the tribes. He accepted and made his capital at Novgorod. His dynasty...
I'm stopping it again, but isn't it crazy that human beings always look for that one person? Even if they have the different tribes, they always look for that one person to lead them. You know what I mean? And that could cause all kind of conflict because the one person is from a certain tribe. Now, is he going to look out for everybody, or is he going to look out for his tribe only? Let's see what happens.
Rurikids would rule Russia for 700 years.
Whoa,
His
700.
people called themselves the Rus and gave their name to the land. Rurik's successor, Oleg, captured Kiev, making it the capital of a new state, Kievan Rus. A century later, seeking closer ties with the Byzantine Empire to the south, Vladimir the Great adopted their religion and converted to Orthodox Christianity. He is still venerated today as the man who brought Christianity to Ukraine and Russia. Yaroslav the Wise codified laws and conquered new lands. His reign marked the golden age of Kievan Rus. It was amongst the most sophisticated and powerful states in Europe. But after Yaroslav's death, his sons fought amongst themselves. Kievan Rus disintegrated into a patchwork of feuding princedoms.
Wow.
Just as a deadly new threat emerged from the east. The Mongols under Genghis Khan had
Oh,
overrun
here
much
comes
of
Genghis.
Asia. Now they launched a great raid across the Caucasus Mountains and defeated the Kievan princes at the Battle of the Kalka River, but then withdrew. 14 years later, the Mongols returned. A gigantic army led by Batu Khan overran the land. Cities that resisted were burnt, their people slaughtered. The city of Novgorod was spared because it submitted to the Mongols. Its prince, Alexander Nevsky, then saved the city again, defeating the Teutonic Knights at the Battle of the Ice, fought above a frozen lake. He remains one of Russia's most revered heroes. The Mongols ruled the land as conquerors. Their new empire was called the Golden Horde, ruled by a Khan from his new capital at Sarai. The Rus princes were his vassals. They were forced to pay tribute or suffer devastating reprisal raids. They called their oppressors Tatars. They lived under the Tatar yoke.
Wow.
Alexander Nevsky's son, Daniel, founded the Grand Principality of Moscow, which quickly grew in power. Under the great Uzbek Khan, the Tatars converted to Islam. A rising power, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania defeated the Tatars at the Battle of Blue Waters and conquered Kiev. 18 years later, Dmitry Donskoy, Grand Prince of Moscow, also defeated the Tatars at the Great Battle of Kulikova Field. After years of infighting, the Golden Horde now began to disintegrate into rival khanates. Constantinople, capital and last outpost of the once great Byzantine Empire, fell to the...
You know, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I mean, what was that year? 13 something, and now it's 1453. These people are fighting forever. They've just been like battling each other in that region there. And I guess it's the same all over the world. Same thing probably in Africa, more than likely, you know what I mean? It's just been fighting forever. And people come and people go. Of course, back then you have 700-year reigns and stuff like that, but with different leaders. But man, they've been fighting we've been fighting forever. Is there ever a time when there was like relative peace? I'm gonna have to find videos to watch that talks about the peace times of when people live and stuff. And I'm not talking about the time when the rich, which always happens, of course, when the upper class is oppressing the lower class to the point where they're starving, but where everybody is living, you know, nicely. You know what I mean? I'm not saying perfectly, but nicely, you know. If you really pay attention to history a lot, I don't know if we just pay attention to the violence of history more than anything else. But is there some point where there was like just, I know there was an Indian emperor that was very violent at first, and then he, gosh, I can't remember his name, but then he started to follow the Buddhist mentality or Buddhist way of thinking, and he had some peace there for a long time. But as soon as he's gone, disintegrated again. You know, it's just crazy. It's like history just consisted of wars and conquerings.
Turkish Ottoman Empire. Some hailed Moscow as the Third Rome, the seat of Orthodox Christian faith. Now Rome and Constantinople had fallen. Meanwhile, the Grand Princes of Moscow continued to expand their power, annexing Novgorod and forging the first Russian state. At the Ugra River, Ivan III of Moscow faced down the Tatar army and forced it to retreat. Russia had finally cast off the Tatar yoke. Under Grand Prince Vasily III, Moscow continued to grow in size and power. His son, Ivan IV, was crowned the first Tsar of Russia. He would be remembered as Ivan the Terrible. Ivan conquered Tatar lands in Kazan and Astrakhan, but was defeated in the Livonian War by Sweden and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Ivan's modernizing reforms gave way to a reign of terror and mass executions, fueled by his violent paranoia. Russia was still vulnerable. Raiders from the Crimean Khanate were able to burn Moscow itself. But the next year, Russian forces routed the Tatars at Molody, just south of the city. Cossacks now lived on the open steppe, a lawless region between three warring states. They were skilled horsemen who lived freely and were often recruited by Russia and Poland to fight as mercenaries. Ivan the Terrible's own son, the Tsarevich, fell victim to one of his father's violent rages, bludgeoned to death with the royal scepter.
Wow.
The Cossack
Man,
adventurer
kill their own
Yermak
people a day.
Timofeyevich led the Russian conquest of Siberia, defeating Tatars and subjugating indigenous tribes. In the north, Arkhangelsk was founded, for the time being Russia's only seaport linking it to Western Europe, though it was icebound in winter. Ivan the Terrible was succeeded by his son, Fyodor I, who died childless. It was the end of the Rurikid dynasty. Ivan's advisor, Boris Godunov, became Tsar. But after his sudden death, his widow and teenage son were brutally murdered, and the throne seized by an impostor claiming to be Ivan the Terrible's son. He too was soon murdered. Russia slid into anarchy, the so-called Time of Troubles. Rebels and foreign armies laid waste to the land, and the population was decimated by famine and plague. Polish troops occupied Moscow. Swedish troops seized Novgorod. The Russian state seemed on the verge of extinction.
Wow. It would be a whole different world if the Swedish and the Polish had kept that there, huh? Man, that's some tumultuous history right there. You know, conquerings and killings and, yeah, you know, family members killing family members. And it's always whenever a ruler who was powerful and strong dies, the whole thing crumbles, like real quick, because everybody's scrambling for power. Human beings are some power-hungry people, aren't they? And I mean, even even simply where you're living like here, you know, everybody is on the same level, working class, but there's still a struggle for power within that lower, I hate to say lower class, less privileged, I guess you should say, class. But anyway, man, thank you all for listening. I hope you guys are having a good weekend and thing, or had a good weekend so far, because I'm recording this on Sunday afternoon, or Sunday early twilight. But anyway, man, y'all take care of each other, all right? Cool runnings.